Hey, I'm Dr. Marcus.
And I'm Charlie, and this is the Mood Booster podcast.
In this episode, we're talking about why we're so polarized in 2025, reflecting on the art of debate, part 2.
Exactly. This is a much more macro level and look at why we're so polarized as people in this day and age, why we disagree so much, and why we can't seem to find common ground.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. We speak a lot about the social identity theory from a psychological perspective, looking at this polarization that's going on at the moment, and then really unpack sort of what we can do about it and how we can maybe overcome this and just get back to a place of conversation.
Exactly. As you just said, it's a much more of a deeper dive into the underlying currents of why we disagree and why we don't find this common ground. You actually learn a lot about how to not only debate better, but how to find more common ground with people you might not necessarily want to or think you should. It's all about finding that common ground, having good debates, but basically becoming more and more connected as people because, as we just mentioned, we feel so polarized.
And as always, towards the end, of course, we do have our extensive list this week, our extensive list of tools and tips for you to help you with all of these things, to not only find peace amongst the polarization, but also, as Charlie said, to help just engage in those conversations and find common ground with people who you might not think you could do.
Or should. It's an interesting one. Fantastic point there.
Yeah.
It's a lovely episode. I've learned so much as usual.
Yes.
And of course, there's always a bit of ancient philosophy in there to help your needs. Yeah, it's a wonderful episode. Hopefully you enjoy it too.
Let's dive into it.
Let's go.
Woo! In this podcast, we share evidence-based advice, tools, and tips to help you boost your mood, improve your well-being, and find joy in the everyday.
Exactly that. We talk about life's highs, lows, and everything in between with real stories and reflections from our own journeys as well.
Yeah, with pillars rooted in introspection, presence, and gratitude, this is the home of well-being and joy.
Cue the intro. Let's go. Hello, everyone.
Buongiorno.
Welcome back to the Mood Booster podcast.
Welcome in.
This is great to have you. This is amazing.
How are we all doing?
How are you? Thanks for joining.
How are we?
Welcome back to episode 32.
32.
Another episode in the bag.
Not another one.
We're still going.
We are still going.
And there's no sign of
You
stopping.
can't get rid of us.
You can not.
You can't not.
This
So
is going to be
don't
a
try.
very exciting episode. Thanks for joining me.
Muy emocionado.
I do not speak Spanish.
But
Yo creo que quiero voy a correr. Tum, tum, tum.
It's muy emocionado.
It's very emotional.
Emocionado is excited as well, apparently.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
That's
that
very
in my
good.
Spanish lesson. Ooh.
Spanish lessons.
Sorry,
Anyway.
we digress. Charlie, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about why we are so polarized in 2025, and we're reflecting on the art of debate part 2. What are you laughing about?
I just was laughing and then you started talking about it because it's a serious topic. I just was like,
What on earth?
to stop laughing because it's a serious topic.
I'm trying to be serious here.
Sorry,
Thank you very much.
be serious.
In all reality,
Be so for real.
last week's episode for Williams. Last week's episode was on how to debate properly, how to win an argument, but really how to have more meaningful debates.
The whole point was not how to win an argument.
That's the point. It's how to have more meaningful conversations, how to get something out of the debate, and how to listen. So in this week's episode, we wanted to do a much more of a deep dive into really why we debate in the first place. So we're looking at polarization. As of recently, it's felt a little bit more polarized than it has in recent times.
Yeah.
And so I think we wanted to just do more of a sort of macro level look at polarization, why we're so polarized, and what really causes that and causes people to have these disagreements or conversations.
Yeah. Basically, debate on a macro level.
Exactly that.
And ironically, maybe the lack of debate at the moment because no one's hearing each other potentially. And there's lack of conversation and a lack of understanding
Or listening.
anyone with a different view or listening.
Yeah.
So, we're thinking about things like identity politics, things like the rise of reform in the UK, the arguably very right wing party headed up by Nigel Farage versus your party, which is the new party by from Zara Sultana and what's his name? Frick, I've lost his name. the old leader of the Labour Party,
Jeremy Corbyn.
Jeremy Corbyn. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Even, that's just one very vanilla example
there's
of
a
mass
lot more,
polarisation
of
going on
course.
at the moment, and just lots of emotion involved with that. And
100%.
yeah, polarisation might have always been there, but at the moment, that's something we're getting into today anyway. It feels like it's just very intense across the globe,
100%.
with lots of serious fundamental questions or discussions or ideologies or identities being called to question.
100%.
So yeah, we just wanted to really break that down and also help you find peace amongst that, because it can be really stressful and it can be really like daunting and just deer in headlights of like, all of this is going on, I feel this type of way but I don't know what to do about it, or personally feel attacked that my identity is being called into question here. So whether it's firstly how we can maybe get into a debate or understand people who have opposing views to us, there's that, but there's also the other side of sometimes debate isn't always possible, and where fundamental human rights are being called into question, or your own existence or your own identity is being called into question, that isn't always possible, and it's also how we can navigate that.
100%. What we do here, it's all about communication and looking after ourselves. So whether it's using the tools and tips from last week's episode, or as we say, understanding more of why we even debate in the first place, from what we're going to speak about today, a lot to learn.
Yes.
A lot to learn. I'm excited.
Firstly, hold on.
What are we holding on for?
Hold on.
What? What's happened?
Charlie,
Whoa.
I've got a big question for you.
Oh my God. What's happened? Oh God.
White and gold or black and blue?
Black and blue, black and blue.
Do you get the reference? Were you too young?
Blue. Of course I get the reference. Buddy boy. Of course I get the reference. White and gold, 100%.
Really?
Did you do black and blue?
I actually saw both. I'm one of those people.
Don't be like that guy. It's so difficult sometimes.
I did.
It's such an attention grabbing method. You didn't.
I swear on my
I
life.
actually saw gold. No,
I swear on my
you
life.
didn't see both.
Okay.
You say
I'm
you have an
asking
eye
I'm
condition
asking
one
you-
day, and then
I'm
you say
asking-
you're
I'm asking you
multi.
to hear me in this moment.
Oh, grow up.
No, seriously, how's your week been?
Thank you for asking me.
Talk to me.
My week's been very, very good, actually. Thank you very much. Still as full on as usual. I was actually in Porto, in Portugal, over the weekend.
Stop the cameras.
Why are we stopping the cameras?
Charlie has gone on holiday. What? You've gone on holiday?
Guys,
That is loco.
guys, something mad's happened. I've actually gone away on a weekend.
You've gone on holiday?
I've actually gone away and had a trip on the weekend.
Oh, I don't know if I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
We'll
actually
have
gone
to-
away on a
We
weekend.
might have to leave it there.
Yep.
That is intense.
The rain has stopped. The gods have stopped talking. I don't know what the phrase is.
Why have you gone on holiday? You don't usually do that.
I don't. It's not really. I just thought, I've been in the UK for so long. Just not left at all recently.
Crazy.
I thought I'd go on holiday.
Mad.
Yes.
Empanadas.
Yes.
How was it?
Unbelievably good.
Nice.
So much fun. I went with two school friends, Tom and Sol. Know them since I was like 15. We see each other like once every month or 2 months now. So far and few between, but it was a holiday. It was a short one. It was just like a weekend break full of laughter. The entire thing was just so ridiculous. It was absolutely brilliant. Porto itself is a gorgeous city. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit slept on, actually, Porto. I've not been, and to be honest, I don't think I would have gone unless Tom had suggested it, but really, really glad I went.
Nice.
The food scene is incredible there. I was saying to you, the food is just so delicious.
Yeah.
Best Turkish eggs ever had in my life. Genuinely, absolutely unreal.
Very nice.
Every meal, and it's like, because of the sort of culture there, it's like really small cafes or really small bistros tucked away into like a pretty normal looking building. So it isn't these massive extravagant restaurants. It's just these really cool little spots, always dotted around everywhere. So we just sort of spotted, we were just sitting in there, going place to place, which was lovely. Tasted some port as well. I'm not a huge fan of port myself, but Porto being the home of port was all right. And then had a couple of fun evenings as well.
Very
in
nice.
a bar. Best bar I might have ever been in as well.
Best what?
Best bar.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
How
best
so?
bar spot. The energy outside. So we were in a restaurant. It was Friday night. We were in a restaurant eating dinner. And the guy who owned the restaurant was actually serving us. And we were asking for recommendations about where to go. And so he shows us this one bar. And we're like, okay, we should try it. We walked to the bar. It was really quiet, nothing there. We're looking around. It's like a really dingy Belgian bar.
Okay.
Is that the word?
Belgian.
Belgian bar, yeah.
Belgian.
A Belgish bar.
Belgerinus.
Belginus. A bar of the
Belgish.
Belgium.
It's Belgish.
It's a Belgish bar. The bar was from Belgish people. And anyway, we were like, this is not looking good. Should we just go home? So we were about to call it. Sol, one of my friends, gets the Google Maps up, finds a bar just on the next street over, which is quite highly rated. So we walk over, and as soon as we come into eyesight of this bar, flooded with people, like 200-300 people, all on the street outside, absolutely heaving. And we're just there like, we have reached the Mecca, we have reached the heavens. So we just go, the energy is great, a lot of like laughter, a lot of people just like standing on the street with their drinks there, but it's better than the sort of London culture. It's like a pub in the rain. It's a really cool European square, right? So we go in, we settle in for a good few hours, and then we're just having laughs. We're talking to these people. I think I was saying to you, but one of the funniest points of that night, Tom, there was this like politician, like I think this guy worked in the Porto Parliament, and he was walking, and he was in the group of us like speaking, and Tom was basically trying to convince him that Tom was an underwater welder. Tom's actual job is like management consultancy, so not anything to do with that. So Tom was telling this guy he was an underwater welder, and then the politician was like, "Oh, really cool. Have you done anything like around here?" And Tom said with full chest, "I have personally connected the south of Porto to the north." And this is just like, it's 1 a.m. and he's just chatting absolute was. And it's just like, what are we doing? Just even looking back, it's so silly.
Very funny.
Very, very funny. So that was the sort of energy that Porto was for the whole weekend. A lot of laughs. Came back quite tired, but overall a great, great weekend.
Nice.
So, how about you?
Very
How was your
good.
week/weekend?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. I just had quite a chill one. Had some good friends, Jay and Lucy, often mentioned on this podcast, came to visit. And yeah, we just had a bit of a chill out. Did park run. Went to the pub all day.
Nice.
Yeah, just a nice chill weekend, really.
The Quab Twee.
Yeah, the Quabtree in Fulham, which is a well-known pub
Very nice
in
pub.
West London. Yeah, you often bump into someone there that you might know. Yeah, no, it was
Did you bump into anyone?
no, I didn't actually. No,
Sounds like you bump into people who you know all the
I swear I
time.
did see someone I knew.
Don't know.
No, I didn't. I don't think so anyway.
Well, you
Yeah.
will bump into someone, listener.
Yeah.
Marcus
So
didn't, but you will.
yeah, often it's quite a popular quite a popular spot.
It is a good spot.
But yeah, no, had a nice weekend. Thank you.
Jay and Lucy,
Yeah,
welcome.
nice and chilled out.
100%.
Quite low key, which is nice to sort of
Good.
have a bit of a balance for the listener as well, because I'm aware that we
Always jet setting.
yeah. So it's nice to sometimes just have a chill as well, which is
Of course.
also very normal. So that's what I was doing this weekend, just having a very normal.
Yeah.
Or I spent all of Sunday catching up on the Traitors.
How is it so
So
far?
yeah, it's hilarious. Alan
Is it
Carr
really good?
has, I say resurged. He's always doing very well, but
No spoilers, please.
he's resurged his, I would say, social media popularity from
Has
how
he?
he is. He's just being hilarious. So
Mm.
yeah, no spoilers though, but
No spoilers. I've not
it's
seen any of them.
going well.
Is it?
Yeah, it's funny. What I will
Nice.
say is, it wasn't my idea. Our housemate Molly sort of raised it, and I agree. Is that because they're celebrities, they're not winning the money, and they obviously don't care as much, I don't think. So well, I think it's way less intense in terms of
Is it?
drama, but it still does get. There was like, I think her name was Ruth. I'm not going to go into what happened, but she's quite sort of opinionated,
Okay.
in a good way, I think. But yeah, I think in general, most of them are kind of a bit more on the fence, it seems.
Yeah.
It still is intense, but yeah, nowhere near as sort of emotive as the civilian version.
100%.
Yeah, no.
That's an interesting take, actually, the fact that's not. I've not seen it yet this season. But yeah, it sounds like it's been good.
It is a good one.
It is a good one.
So it was nice to catch up because, yeah, going a million miles an hour all the time, not complaining, means that some of those sort of just smaller things don't necessarily happen. So it was nice to
course.
just just take a day and just do nothing / watch telly. So yeah, that's what I did.
Good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. It sounds like a bit of a chill weekend.
Yeah, what they do on the traitors is a lot of arguing.
A lot of debating, I may say. A lot of polarization.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good segue from you. That was great.
And lots of group mentality, lots of group things,
Identity politics.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
For sure.
Fantastic segue.
Thank you very much.
I'm proud of you for that one.
I appreciate it. Thank
That was
you.
a really good one.
Yeah.
I'm kind of inspired.
Well, you can't have it all. Do you know what I mean?
I do not.
You've got the good hair. I've got the segues.
Both of those things there.
What?
Both of those things.
Both of those things.
Both those things. There's nothing more, nothing less.
Nope, that's literally it.
I shan't tell.
Nope.
Chantel.
Chantel.
Anyway, debating. Polarization. I
Yeah.
think you mentioned it briefly there.
Mm.
Before we get on to debate, or you mentioned it briefly in our sort of intro, there are some caveats that we really want to sort of go into
Yeah.
with the whole idea of debate, especially polarization as well.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to acknowledge that a lot of the sort of facets of what we're going to speak about, we need to acknowledge that real harm can be done with this sort of level of polarization.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to like acknowledge that
Yeah.
first off.
And also that there's asymmetry in power as well. So, like, for example, when we're talking about getting in debate or having an open conversation with someone, some people look. We're talking about debate, so there's one of the issues I want to move away from is like it being binary of two sides, but that's a lot of what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
sometimes, so when there's a side, one side there's an asymmetry there, like one side is coming from a place of power and privilege and being like in a majority or whatever. Let's say, someone who is a conservative white male has no sort of differences in sexual identity or gender identity, all of those sorts of things, hasn't come from, I don't know, hasn't migrated, or, all of those things. There's so much in terms of structural power that might lend or be given to that person, or just not given to, but just they have.
Yeah.
So therefore, in a debate where they might be dehumanizing someone or dehumanizing someone who has come from a war-torn background and is trying to seek asylum, or someone who is really struggling and fundamentally struggling with their gender identity and has no idea and is really difficult, that immediately we just want to caveat sometimes those conversations aren't possible or equal, and we don't want to just say, oh, you just need to listen to that person, when if actually they're just fundamentally calling into question your identity or your human rights. That's when we can park it, and there's other ways that we can look after ourselves there.
100%.
But sometimes there is a space for a debate, and we need to find more of a space for debate and 100%. Less dehumanization of the opposing side from both sides, or all sides. I don't want to say both sides, implying that there's just two.
No, of course.
But that's from all sides, because let's stick, for the sake of argument, to two sides at the moment. The left versus the right, both dehumanize each other and both see each other to be this immoral, crazy, bad person, bad party, bad group of people who we could never understand, and there's no point even debating. But when we do that, we just set ourselves up to lose, because we ultimately, I believe, you believe, we have to find peace and we have to find common ground to be able to have a pro-social society that moves forward and seeks the best for everyone.
100%. That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, everything what we're talking about is how we communicate better. I think we're going to go into a bit of why we're so polarized to start. I'm really interested to learn about why this polarization exists in the first place, because this isn't just a recent thing. I mean, it has in the recent years, it's felt a little bit more polarized, but since the dawn of time, we've always found these, whether it's, the working class versus the upper class, or, whatever it is, different forms, different groups of people, we've always been polarized and had differing views and not really heard each other. Yeah. So I'm really interested to learn a bit more about, first off, why we actually...
Well, I think it's very interlinked. Interlinked. It's quite like... There's not one set answer, and there never will be with these sorts of things. Now, let's just... I think from my perspective, and I know you do as well, we want to come, as we always do, from a psychological perspective. There are loads of different political movements or changes or economic changes that have happened over even since, since the dawn of time, but I think there's been a shift since, from my reading into this, since, post World War, over the last however many decades, into the last couple of decades, there's been a shift from maybe looking more from an economic lens politically to more an identity-based lens politically. But again, we're not political experts, and we want to come from a psychological perspective. So where we get to with that is things like the social identity theory.
Okay, interesting.
The social identity theory is something that is heavily important and influential in the formation of our self, but then also how we behave and how we see things like debates and our political stances and our values and our in-groups and out-groups. So yeah, should we break it down?
I think we should break it down 100%.
The social identity theory. So basically, it's a psychological theory. We have spoken about the social identity theory before, but basically, it's that people define themselves partly by their group membership. We are, as we've said in many previous episodes, we are social beings. We are hardwired to connect with our neighbor and connect with people in a group, because group think and group connection and a group identity ultimately is what enables and promotes survival. We have to survive together as a tribe. So as part of that, we have our group values, and when we can when we can find a group and identify with that group, we sort of latch onto that group, and our self-esteem, our view of ourself, all of our values, all of those things come from what we see that group to be and how we align with that group, or how we see ourselves to be aligning with whatever that group is. So we think about things like religious groups, for example. We have, very broadly speaking, Christianity, or any other religion,
Any religion,
literally
any
religion. That is a group of which we can assign ourselves to and associate ourselves with, and that group, that in this instance, that religious group, has literally a book, but like literally a core set of values that we must adopt and adhere to, and a lot of those are explicit, like the Ten Commandments or whatever it is in the context of Christianity, but a lot of those are implicit as well. Things that are like value-based, traditions,
marriage,
sort of man and woman procreating, because that's what God set us up to do. All of those sorts of things. So, and then it comes with like the implicit things are also sort of, because marriage again is maybe more of an explicit sort of structural thing, but still things like looking after your neighbor and being a kind, compassionate person, all of those sorts of things are what arguably also are part of values within Christianity or any other religion, to be honest. So we, being part of that group, feel safe, we feel connected, and we feel proud. Also, the pride is a huge thing, pride in being associated with that culture, with that group. And that gives not only ourselves sort of an identity for ourselves, because it gives me a framework of which I can behave, because that's how the group behaves, therefore I can do that. But it also gives me an identity within a wider context of a group, and a safety, and a sort of an intrinsic or innate feeling of protection and association there. So that's, I say quickly defining, but that's broadly defining what social identity theory sort of argues.
I mean, even hearing that now, that it gives so much credence to any sort of idea of polarization or debate or anything. It completely makes sense when these, debates which we have, it completely makes sense if you see even videos online of certain groups of people having these debates. As you said, it almost goes back to a tribe. It literally looks like almost tribal.
Yeah.
People find their core group of people who have those same values, because that's where they feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's where, when you're in that group mentality, you find that these sorts of, you find that barrier between these groups, especially when the views don't align at all.
Yeah. Because that also leads on to part of the social identity theory, these other mechanisms that are involved, like positive distinctiveness. Like, you want your group to be the best one. You have a positive bias towards your group. It is your group, therefore you want to be successful in yourself, and by proxy you want your group to be the most sort of prosperous, successful one.
That's funny, because how that links into the topic of debate, which we were saying, often a pitfall of debate is trying to win, not trying to understand. So by that thing you've just described there,
Yeah.
surely that means that by trying to win, by trying to get your group to win,
Yeah.
you're actually losing out because you're not learning or understanding.
Yeah.
And again, I know, as we said in the beginning, sometimes you don't have to like understand if it's a, slightly harmful rhetoric. However, if you're going in, what was it, positive
sorry, 1 second. Positive distinctiveness. Sorry.
positive distinctiveness.
Yeah.
If you're looking for your tribe to win and be the best group, you're not actually going into a debate with that understanding that you should have to learn, right?
Yeah, and that's why you also feel challenged when you see things that another group are doing, not the other, but another group are doing, because that isn't in line with your own in group. It feels like a threat to what you know to be true or what you think to be the best. So, and that's where we come back to like we just said, like confirmation bias of, I know I'm so used to this being the best and this is how we should behave, even if actually, if you critically broke it down and saw it objectively, that potentially whatever the other group were doing was better or saying was better, because you have that confirmation bias and you want your group to be the best. That's when your emotions get involved and are like, and as we were talking about heavily last week, I'm not going to critically engage with this new information or this observation from this other group because it threatens my in-group and what I know to be true. Therefore, I'm just going to shut it out or challenge it or dehumanize it because, revise, listen to last week. So very interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So, but also by the nature of having an in, like anything yin and yang or up and down. Sorry, very basic example.
Up and down.
If you have up, you must have down, right? Well, like.
Oh my God, get that on a pillow right now. That's a Dr. Marcus.
Okay, I heard it sound stupid when I said it. You don't need to tell me.
Back in my studies, actually, we learned that when you have up, you must have down.
Oh God.
Back in my PhD, we actually learned.
You bring some academic.
Back in my PhD, we actually learned that when you have left, you must have right.
You bring some intellect here, then. I'm tired. You get what I mean, right? So where you have to have
wet and dry.
Like a magnet, there's or whatever you've got to have
foot and hand.
No, that's not the same.
I'm repeating to you. I know what you mean.
When you have an in group, you must have an out group. To be able to have an in group, psychologically, there's got to be an out.
100%.
Because otherwise, if everyone were in the in group, there wouldn't be an in group. There's got to be there has to be a distinctiveness to your group for it to feel like this is my tribe and this is how I identify with this unique, and the distinctiveness and uniqueness to it. This is how I identify with this unique tribe. If everyone were just in this in group, it wouldn't be an in group. So psychologically, there has to be an out group, if not multiple, well, definitely multiple out groups, and my in group has to be the best. So by the nature of there being an in-group, it's important to also highlight the concept of out-groups and how all of these things stem from a fear of, not wanting to know, a feeling threatened by, all of the above out-groups.
I do challenge that slightly. Hear me out here. Is the nature, if we're thinking about this purely on having started off as tribes, having an in and an out group, inherently bad, or is it the fear that we associate with the out group and the lack of understanding the bad thing? Having grown up, not me personally, but having humans evolved all over the planet, we have had a lot of cultures which have, become all around that are very, very, very different. So there will always be in and out groups from wherever. It's the fear. It's the lack of wanting to understand and instead impose their own views on that out group, which is actually the bad thing. Yes. Are in groups and out groups actually bad?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the theory says that either. Like,
I was more asking
I don't think in groups and out groups are bad as a concept. Like, it's a good thing to have safety with who you know and all of those things, and that, like I say, up and down, for example, that to have an in group, you kind of need to have other groups. I live in a village. I can't live in every village. I have one religion. I personally don't, but like I have one religion. I can't not to my knowledge, be
multi-faceted.
maybe you can be
religion.
more anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's got to be a uniqueness to your identity. I think, which means and what we're trying to get towards is these. And even the word outgroup maybe does have a slight negative connotation to it,
Yeah.
but it's how we act upon how we see those other groups.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like from a psychological perspective, there's mechanisms that explain these negative behaviors of you're bad because you're an outgroup, you're not, I'm superior to you because I want to be superior and I need to feel superior in my identity and my self-esteem. You're wrong, I'm right, and I'm not going to listen to anything you say because this is my identity and my religion is the superior religion, for example, when sticking with the example of religion. But that's where, as always, when we know these psychological mechanisms and our brain's shortcuts and our knee-jerk reactions, if we know them, we're able to potentially work on them and look to challenge them and overcome them.
Yeah.
I don't think the in-group, out-group concept itself is a bad thing. I think it's how we react and use those concepts to shape our behavior. Whether we even, a lot of this is subconscious. Most of this is subconscious, and we don't even know we're doing that.
Of course.
Hence why we're talking about it today.
Yeah. But if it's been raised and if you've been raised in this in-group and taught certain values about said out-group,
Yeah.
One could argue when these in-groups and out-groups mix, as we are becoming, far more globalized, and we want to speak about this more, when people are becoming far more interconnected, as you say, those threats can be heightened because of what you've been taught and what you've heard and what you've listened to, when that's realistically not just the out-group moving in, it's how we see that and how we view that.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is why it's also difficult, or something that seems to be so prevalent today, because again, without going into too much detail about it, like with the rise of identity politics, which is very much on the rise, identity politics being politics and politicians using identity-based concepts and arguments to form a lot of their decisions or policies and debates and even sort of what's the word? Campaigns, sorry. So it's looking to a lot more of things of social values and identities, such as religion, things like your gender, your things like even things like how you identify yourself as a person, or
there's labels you feel like you need to give yourself.
The labels we give ourselves. That's a lot of more of identity politics, and gives the rise of things like popularism, for example, as opposed to things that are more based on economics and policy. And when there's a rise of that, you have things like the Reform Party here in the UK, for example, using very broad, very bold statements and potential things of scapegoating very small groups of people, again small groups of identities of people, in this instance, for example, people who are transgender, for example, or immigrants, for example. They're two huge groups of people, aka identities, that parties use to spread information or spread this is this person, they're bad, with very little critical engagement in actually, let's maybe try and understand these people, let's try and understand where they're coming from. So when someone is listening to that, they don't, and they already identify with that group, right? So I identify with, not me, not me, but hypothetically, I identify with the Reform Party.
Clip that. That is such. I'll clip that right now.
Hypothetically, I identify with the Reform Party. I think that
once more.
Immigrants are bad. I think that transgender people are bad, and they aren't what I know, and therefore they're a threat to me, because what I know is cozy village in the middle of England that is 99% white faces, and the people that I know, and my church down the road that I can go to. That's what I know and what I'm comfortable with. Ultimately, what it comes down to, and very interestingly, we did street interviews yesterday, and one of the people spoke about this very eloquently, was also education and experience.
100%.
if we don't experience other cultures and other outgroups,
Yep.
we again have these ideas about them that we don't know, and we just lump them as, you're an outgroup, you're this, 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 and this, and we stereotype, and we put a whole sort of bunch of labels on them. And that's why I come back to where I started this, is these potential politicians or big figures know that, and they then just pass around information
Yep.
that sort of perpetuates that sort of outgroup feeling and that outgroup sort of rhetoric, as opposed to, that might be I'm not saying it is, but that might be something that has a bit of validity about this group of people. But first, let's try and speak to them. Let's try and understand them. Let's see if we've got common values. Let's see if we've got common goals. Let's see how we could maybe work together, for example. And maybe our policy might get to a place where, I don't know, we're still not necessarily prioritizing you as a group of people, as your identity, because our in-group fundamentally will never agree with that. But let's maybe get to a place where we can maybe understand you a bit more, and therefore this is the whole point, it won't, but our policies and our agenda won't sort of villainize you so much and won't focus on you so much, because that's all we're focusing on right now.
100%. I can completely see how, with the lack of education being the forefront of a society, and with the lack of, means to travel or see and be enriched by different cultures and people, if you didn't have the means to do that, is such a breeding ground for that closed-mindedness and that lack of understanding. So that even if you don't agree with these certain values that these certain, in-groups have, if you've been raised to have the identity of this in-group, whether you're, I'm not even gonna say what it is, like if you're just being raised with an in-group and that's just part of your culture, your identity, and it's normal to you, when the people who you look up to say certain things, of course you're going to believe it.
Well, of course.
And if you've not had the means growing up to travel or, educate yourself on this sort of thing, I can completely see how you then become more hateful. And then when someone says, "Oh, you try and understand," you're like, well, why would I try and do that? It doesn't make sense to try and understand.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm right.
But also, it's easy, and it's comfortable for our brain,
of course,
to just, as we discussed last week, to consume and accept information that confirms what our brain already thinks is true.
Yep.
So when we're given this information that already aligns with, okay, this is my sleepy safe village of white faces and people that don't challenge my in-group identity of all of those things, I'm just going to continue to consume that information because it's easier. And then you can see where this polarization, or in some instances this radicalization, where this is just perpetuated over and over and over again, and extremism comes in because we're just fed this over and over again. And also, this is, I'm going off on a tangent, but this is where social media also can become and enhances this polarization
100%.
because of the algorithm. And the algorithm is such a powerful thing, but there are so many studies which will reference, it will put some in the references of how your algorithm feeds you what it knows you want to see. And therefore you start, the amount of radicalization and just confirmation bias that people see through the algorithms, again, it takes away some of what we should be doing of actually engaging with opposing views and with opposing ideas, or not necessarily opposing, but just cultures and views and ideas and identities that are different to ours. But our algorithm isn't built like that. Our algorithm is built to feed us what we know and what we like and what we already consume, therefore just perpetuating our understanding and our already innate views.
It's really interesting you've said that. One of the girls yesterday on these street interviews, I don't think you were listening, but I think you were speaking to the next people there. She said the exact same thing about social media, was that because of the algorithm, it creates these in-groups, and also a byproduct of people being on social media more means they're outside less, they're communicating less. Really, really interesting point she raised, was one of the biggest things that we can try and do to combat this, barrier, this polarization, and to at least have more conversations, is social spaces. And while social media has allowed us to project our voices more, it doesn't allow us to have these meaningful conversations more. Being inside more, being on your phone more, being identifying, I should say, more with your group who you believe in and you're more comfortable with, gives you so much more of a space to not listen to other groups. And obviously, thus, as a byproduct, being on your phone as well just means you're talking less to other people. and then trying to get those social spaces back where we can communicate with other people, even if we don't agree with them, having those open communications with those out groups or those other people, and being less involved in your in group is where that allows us to actually find out more, be more educated, and learn more.
Yeah. Also, it just allows you to feel safe to explore ideas.
Yep.
Because again, part of the issue is there's so much sort of anger from all sides. I say both sides, but let's say both sides because we're talking about polarization here. There's so much anger from both sides in any debate at the moment that anyone that sort of has anything that slightly opposes just an extreme, no, you must, all encompassing, think, women's rights, transgender rights, pro-Palestine, all of the things. If you don't think something that completely, fully, fundamentally agrees and says all of those things, and I'm even feeling nervous in just saying this, then you
get bombarded.
You are inhumane. You don't believe in human rights for people. All of those things, and it's like, Therefore, you can also understand why people are nervous to engage in those conversations, and then they just stick to what they know because they can't. They find that there's not a safe space for them to maybe even begin to educate themselves.
Completely, that's a fantastic
or
point.
even engage in that conversation.
It's because the debates feel pointless if you're going to be labelled as something for challenging an idea or trying to open up a debate or a communication. We're so quick to label people and associate them to just certain characters or identities because of one thing that they might believe in. Of course, like that just instills fear into the whole thing, which is the reason or the way through, which is communication and conversation. But when you're in that group, especially on social media, who labels people, who maybe cancels people, of course you're gonna, it feeds into cancel culture, which is terrible.
And also, I mean, I'm very much giving my political opinion here, but I saw Stephen Fry talking about this. It was really interesting. He's like, the biggest problem with us liberals and us leftists to put labels on these things for the sake of argument, or keeping it simple, is we have so much in-group fighting. We're not a united front because of all of this stuff of like, you have to agree with every single thing I say, otherwise you're wrong. And it's like, no two human beings are going to agree with every single point. We can't have this overarching, sweeping, you must fundamentally just agree with this completely whitewashed set of rules, otherwise you're out. Like, you can never, and that's why Stephen Fry was saying, you can fully understand why the fascist far right are completely rising in power, because they all have in-group disagreements, but they don't care because they see the bigger picture and they have a united front in their identity. Whereas people on the left, for example, are so sort of worried about the intricacies and you must get this right, And Jamila Jamil was talking about this as well, very eloquently, probably far more eloquently than I am, that we're so busy trying to police each other and say you must get this right and have extreme things of you, unless you fully agree with this, you're wrong, that we are just losing conversation and we're losing like our ability to just be united in something. We're not united in anything because we're all so extreme about everything. And it's, again, we need to strip back and stop being so extreme about everything and expecting every single person to agree with every single point. Like, for example, you raised J.K. Rowling. I saw an interview with Keira Knightley this week or last week where someone asked her about J.K. Rowling, and she laughed it off, and I don't really know like the PR of it or whatever, but she laughed it off and was like, we all just need to start learning to tolerate each other. But because, now don't get me wrong, I don't at all, the fact I'm having to preface this, but anyway, I don't at all agree with J.K. Rowling's views on transgender spaces, transgender rights, all of those things. I don't. But the fact that Keira Knightley didn't explicitly say that and said something that was kind of just on the fence, the internet's absolutely berating her,
of course,
and saying she's an awful person for not standing against J.K. Rowling. And actually what she was saying is we need to learn to tolerate each other more, which is ironic, like, because
one of the most inclusive things you can say.
Because then in her saying that, people were doing the opposite of tolerating her. And I just,
it seems to, like, a very underlying theme, or like a overarching theme, I should say, is there seems to be just a rise, whether it's identity politics or whatever it is, it's labeling overall, because we now have louder voices because of social media, or whether it's just mobile phones in general. There's far more people than there used to be on planet Earth. maybe it's an ego thing as well. There seems to be an increase in a need to label yourself as something, to try and find your tribe, to try and
Yeah.
find your label and like, who am I? Not instead of like, who are you as a person? What do I believe in? Who are my groups? Let me associate with that. So then you find these defenses and these walls. As you say, when someone doesn't necessarily fit in, even if it's Keira Knightley saying something on the fence, you jump to cancel because that feels good.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
dangerous, a really, really dangerous thing to do.
And also in a time of, just lots of instability in the world, from post-pandemic, financial
Yep.
instability, and all of those financial hardships globally. But it just allows you to sort of connect to something and feel something, to be like,
Yeah.
that's another thing. Social identity theory says that when there are challenging times in the world, you are more likely to feel way more connected and protective of your group and your identity. So when we have financial hardship, for example, we rally around our group more and make more of an out group. Like, it's the whole reason why scapegoats are hugely used by fascists, or certain political groups or movements.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into this, but look at the Holocaust, like a key scapegoat
Yeah.
in a time of financial burden and financial hardship. What do the Reform do? They work on scapegoats. They work on, let's rally around our people to dislike someone. And I don't want to like take very real human experiences and just talk about something that's a movie, but it's for a reason. I've said this before, like in the Wicked movie, for example, the whole premise of it is when people are in hard times, get them together, and what gets people together?
Common enemy.
A common enemy,
There you go.
a scapegoat.
Yep.
So when we are in hard times financially, or post-pandemic, all these things, we feel connected by our in-groups. And what helps perpetuate an in-group? Out-groups, and feeling like we're better and superior to other people.
Yeah.
And it's just such a shame, because we don't have to know, like, I'm not Sikh, for example, but some of it's literally Diwali at the moment. Like, this is a really random example, but I love my memories of like going to one of my best friend Money's house and just learning about this culture that I have no idea about, and I still don't know anywhere near enough about, but like just soaking that in. Like, I'm not going to become Sikh myself. I don't have to become Sikh to be able to just immerse in something else that's not my own identity.
Yeah.
And it's just a very simple, basic example of how that's just a really nice thing to do, and I don't have to isolate myself to just what I know.
It's funny, I think the more, again, I know this is a privilege to say this, but the more education you can have on diversity, the more, I say travel like it's an easy thing to do. I fully appreciate it's not, but the more you can experience different cultures, different people, different, whether it's even foods or whatever it is, the more you can experience that, just try and submerge, you actually find a lot of common ground and a lot of similar values, but ones which actually carry over into a lot more beneficial sort of areas, whether it's care, compassion, sharing, just not to sound wishy-washy, but love, it does transcend a lot of these sorts of barriers that we put in place, because we're scared to experience or scared to be part of or a lack of our own in-group, when so much through sharing these values is actually, so much is to be had from there.
I think that's a really good point also about the values. It's like, a lot of these things feel so emotive, and so we dehumanize the other person because we don't think that they have values. Because how could you, when, for example, you completely invalidate or negate someone's complete identity, someone's sexual orientation, for example, or someone's gender identity? How could you have values? How could you have morals? But if we strip that back, maybe I'm naive. I don't think I am. I know I'm not naive. All of these people, regardless of where they sit, have values, and they have values on which they are acting. And maybe always remembering that we can't always engage in these conversations, and sometimes we can't when people are dehumanizing things, but sometimes somewhere in the middle, what we can do is just try and, instead of just saying you're right, I'm wrong, the other way around, you're wrong, I'm right, and you're a bad person, you're a villain. Let's take away all the noise about who thinks what about which political party. Let's start on, and that's what the lady in the street interviews was saying. Let's just find safety and common ground in what we do agree on, because we all have values, and we're human beings. We have values that drive us, things like fairness, things like equality, things like family, other people respecting authority, whatever it might be. let's make sure we can just find some common ground there and build up a conversation from there, as opposed to the other way around of, you think that transgender people shouldn't have this space, I think that they should, you're wrong, I'm right. Okay, it's a difficult one because I think the debate around transgender rights is extremely tired and extremely invalid, and I just think, like, let people live. And I don't want to keep using that as an example because it's actually probably an example of dehumanizing people. It definitely is an example of dehumanizing people, and we shouldn't be debating people's identity. But even just having a conversation about, for example, someone like J.K. Rowling, we might never agree, but instead of thinking you're an awful human being that might think something about just wanting to protect, I don't know, a feminist space, for example, or female spaces, is there somewhere that instead of just immediately whitewashing you with you're an anti-trans person, you're all of this, I never said that I was.
Yep.
I just have maybe one single nuance in there that if we just heard each other for a second, we might actually agree. But yeah, I think on a larger scale, it's difficult because these identities are called into question far too much, and it's at this point just a shame and probably frankly disgusting. So it becomes tired, and we can't even have this conversation, or shouldn't even, because it is so whitewashed with these transgender people are bad, therefore, and it's just
I mean, it comes from, as you said, so many different places. Inherently, the want to learn is probably the best thing that you can have as well. I know we said this yesterday. I thought it was actually a really, really interesting point. Marcus Aurelius, the ancient Roman philosopher, I think, his book in Meditations, one of the things that he wrote, which I fully appreciate comes from a bit of a place of privilege, is there's power in not necessarily needing to have an opinion. There's power in not needing to say something all the time. Just listening and finding out more is often one of the best things that we can do. But again, whether it's because of labeling, our identities, our in-groups, who we know, who we want to be, we feel like we need to have an opinion on certain things. And again, I know because of certain things we've said earlier, when it becomes harmful, we can't just sit back and not listen. But for certain things, you don't need to have an opinion on it. You can just sit back and listen and appreciate and understand. And that's where that learning comes from, to become more understanding of everyone.
It is difficult though, and I completely agree, but also at the same time I don't fully agree, because that's where like allyship comes in, and like allyship. Yeah, so like being an ally, for example.
Yes.
Whether it's for Palestinians or the queer community or any other marginalized group. Like I don't identify, I'm not Palestinian, but I feel like maybe when you're seeing such injustices happening,
of course,
there's we can't sit back and say, oh, I don't want to have an opinion.
No, of course, I did very much preface it with everything. Of course, there are certain when like a genocide's happening, you've got to obviously speak up or have your stance. But in a lot of places when there's not that happening, and there's a much smaller argument, I think not having an opinion is also quite beneficial.
Yeah, and that's where, for example, and maybe it comes back to what I'm sure, and again, I'm worried about tripping myself up because it's not an experience that I have, and I don't want to keep talking about it. But like people in the trans community, for example, let's stop talking about it. Like, let's stop having an opinion, because they're just people who want to just live their life. Like, so why are we talking about them making people unsafe or children indoctrinated and all these things? Like, it's the most ridiculous thing. But again, it comes from like a lack of education, a lack of understanding. But why do we just not just let people coexist and let people? But again, it comes from, we can't necessarily do that because we have an in-group and we have an out-group, and we have big political figures or big figures telling us these things are bad.
Of course.
When actually, if you look at the people who perpetuate all of these forms of violence that apparently is the transgender people are doing, it's always the same group of demographic. Males, or white powerful males. But yeah, I think it's a difficult one to find a balance, I think, talking about in terms of identity and how to debate those sorts of things.
I think hearing a lot of these things is probably daunting, quite overwhelming, and quite often scary, especially as you're hearing the polarization and hearing these different sides, especially on social media, which is quite loud. If you're listening to this and you feel like, well, I don't know what to do now, I just want to sort of become a recluse into my own hobbit hole and, not partake. There are definitely some things that you can do, which will, again, one of the things that we always say is improve your well-being, help you find that balance and help you improve, whether it's to listen or to understand. Maybe you have a rhetoric which you don't think people agree with or that you become quite passionate about. There are lots of tools and tips that you can use to really try and improve your stance and become more educated, more multifaceted and learn more, because that's how you become a better person as well. I think it might be a prudent time to go into some of the tools and tips for the people.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Tools and tips to sort of reduce polarization and engage in a healthy debate.
Yeah, I think so. I think we go into it. Some of the
do
advice for you. So number one, what we've been saying for this whole thing is anchor in your values and not your tribe.
Number 2, don't confuse empathy with endorsement.
Number 3 is know when to disengage.
Number 4, speak from lived experience, not slogans.
Number 5 is to reframe your online behavior.
Number 6, really important, stay aware of algorithmic bubbles.
And lastly, the most important one almost, to remember that humility is actually a strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some really interesting ones there.
Yeah. So number 1,
Yep.
talking about values, anchoring your values, not your in-group or your tribe. Like when engaging in any debate or any sort of discussion with anyone,
Yeah.
like we said, lead with your values and not this is me versus you. This is me as a Christian versus you as a Muslim. Like we have shared values. Let's find those and let's build our conversation from our values and what we can agree on and how we are as basic human beings with basic values.
Completely.
Right?
I think it semi-links to last week is if you can lead with values, but then also a curiosity for values, for the other person's values, you'd be a lot more constructive at learning, but also having a good conversation as well.
Yeah.
100%. Number 2 is to not confuse empathy with endorsement. So this is when you listen to someone's story or reasoning, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it necessarily. It means you're trying to understand the why, not just the what. So this can allow the open dialogue without sort of compromising your integrity.
Yeah.
Allows you to find out more, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and again, it leads on from finding shared values. It's like I'm trying to understand you, but it doesn't necessarily mean I have to agree with you or even endorse what you're saying. But as coexisting human beings, let's first just try and understand each other. And I might walk away and be like, that was the most profound thing I've ever heard. And I don't know how that person lives their life. But like, we can just try and understand and just at least try and see where we're coming from, because that understanding takes away that sort of that scariness or that confusion, or that, again, where there's a lack of understanding or where there's a void of information, that void is filled with assumption from us, and assumption is never a good thing.
Never a good thing.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So number 3, knowing when to disengage. Healthy debate isn't about enduring hostility. So sometimes, and as we said from the beginning, sometimes these things, especially when fundamental human basic dignity is not being respected, sometimes people aren't always acting with the best interest. You can control your actions, you can't control someone else's. And when someone, you can fundamentally tell that they don't want to engage in that sort of healthy, constructive, shared value-based debate or conversation, it's also okay to disengage. You don't need to put yourself through that, because it's only going to detrimentally impact your well-being.
100%. Interesting one that is. The next one is to speak from lived experience and not slogans. This is one that I'm still trying to learn as well, is to speak from your own actual experiences, not things that your tribe have told you, not things that you've heard online or your algorithm is feeding you. When we can speak from our experiences and how something has made us feel, or, what you've seen firsthand, it means it's a lot harder to, combat these experiences, because that's your own view. And if you haven't experienced something, say that. I haven't experienced this, but, for instance, but always lead with your own experiences, because that grounds your argument in your own values. And
again, it's the very antithesis of sort of polarization. If we can speak to our experiences, it moves us away from those polarized labels of, okay, you're this and I'm that, you're far right, I'm far left. Let's talk about our experiences, and again, like point number one, our values, and not just label each other and what we think each other are. And if we could speak to those experiences, it's a lot easier to also then question those experiences and say, I don't understand that. Can you explain why you think that from that experience, as opposed to, oh, okay, well, you think that because just a general overarching label
That's
of
you.
are a Tory or you're a whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Lovely job. So, yeah. So number 5, reframing online behavior.
Yeah. So this is if you feel the urge to react or maybe even prove a point online, ask yourself, would I say this face to face? I think this is very, very topical.
Yeah.
Especially as a video that we released recently with Maria.
Yes.
Would you say it face to face? I know it's a very reductionist point to make, but my mum always used to say, if I was going to say something to someone online, would I say it with my nana there? It's a very reductionist, but would I say it face to face with someone who I cared about and whose opinion I respected if they were there? Would I say this thing face to face? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Don't be a keyboard warrior.
Yeah, well, all of this polarization is happening online. A lot of it is, and actually, when you get someone in the room, not all of it, but a lot of it is, when you get someone in the room, you can, whether it's because you're less sort of bold and brave or whatever, you just see someone's eyes and you're like, okay, we're two human beings.
You want to understand.
You want to understand. Yeah. So it's so easy to forget that when things are online and it's just digits on a screen or pixels on a screen. Yeah. But just, I guess, it's a case of that, using that higher order thinking and that pausing and that thinking before I act and before I say this. How would that be received? Or if I was next to my loved one here or my grandmother, what would she be thinking of what I'm writing here?
Yeah, that's true.
Really cool. Yeah,
it's a simple tool, but it's really good.
And it definitely leads to this of being aware of algorithmic bubbles. Again, keeping it online is like, I think it's a really good bit of advice to challenge your algorithm and to seek out information. Maybe follow a couple of pages that are opposing to your views. Seek or consume information that does challenge what you believe to be true and what you believe to be your political or your social views. It's not necessarily, and this is the thing, it doesn't necessarily mean you will change your mind or you have to change your mind or your identity or all those things, but it just really helps sort of immerse yourself with other people and other ideas, and also help you critically engage and stop that sort of extremism, that perpetual cycle of this is more and more intense views over and over and over again that my algorithm is feeding me.
100%. And that sort of goes into the last point, is all around humility. Know it's okay to change your mind. It actually makes you a stronger person. I think maybe especially in the whole masculine sphere, we can often associate our ego to, thinking we're right and having it right all the time. But to let go of that, know that we know very, very little as people in general, and that it's okay to change your mind. It actually makes you stronger because you become more educated, more accepting. These things are good and not bad. So know that humility is strength. You can literally frame it in a way of, I actually hadn't thought of it in that way. That's a fantastic point. That is a really strong way to appear and learn, and so going in with humility first and the want to learn will change a lot. So I think lead with that first, the want to change, or the want to learn at least.
Yeah,
a very, very strong idea.
Very nice.
Yeah, so
very nice.
Wow, there's a lot there, but that's really good stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and it's tricky to sort of I guess just say to unpack all of that in a short period of time when there's so much sort of really important, or there's so many really important points. But here we are. I'm a victim of this polarization, feeling nervous about saying these things.
It's completely normal. It's completely normal, especially on an online space where this is going, when, as we were saying, so much of online is about your in-groups and cancelling and identity, when realistically, how do you forge an identity without labels? You can, but it's difficult. So it's completely normal to feel nervous, I think.
I'm reflecting live on this moment, like, I know my values, and all of this, I know my values. So I believe them, but I also know that they can change, and my opinions can change. And if I've said something incorrectly throughout this, then maybe I can be, in a nice way, asked or questioned or challenged.
Up for debate.
And I can have a debate about it and I can learn. But again, I know my values and I know my intention and I know that I mean well, so I shouldn't be as nervous because...
You shouldn't be, because the open debate and the open communication, you're welcome to. And if someone doesn't agree with it, I'm sure they'd be open to a debate as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Find him at Dr. Marcus Bull.
Yeah.
Debate, or Charlie John Warner.
Yeah.
Open for debates.
Yeah.
As long as you're curious.
But yes, thank you for that one.
No worries.
Very
Really
interesting.
interesting one.
Yeah.
A lot more to speak about.
We
but
just got to look after ourselves.
We do.
It's a divided time.
It is.
And we've got to look after ourselves and keep our peace, but also find peace for the world, because
You said it.
Lord knows.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
I know.
Should we just keep peace?
Let's just talk more.
Let's just talk more. What was that?
Yeah. So, Charlie,
Yes.
talk to me. What's boosted your mood this week?
What's boosted my mood? I think we actually have a joint mood boost, don't we?
do.
Bit of an interesting one, bit of a dual mood boost for
It's
this
a
week.
birthday
It's a
special.
birthday special. Both of our brothers, mine Felix and yours,
George.
both of their birthdays are this weekend, which is just gone by the time this episode's released. Felix is turning 24 on yesterday, Sunday.
George is turning 33.
Oh,
33.
crikey. On the Saturday, right?
Yes, on Saturday.
So by the time this is out, both of their birthdays would have occurred. Little birthday number weekend.
HBD.
Happy birthday, chaps.
HBD chaps.
Happy birthday.
Bon
Very
anniversaire.
exciting. Feliz Navidad.
Feliz birthday.
Feliz cumpleaños.
There
I
we
said
go.
Merry Christmas.
You did indeed.
God, I need some more Spanish lessons. Feliz cumpleaños.
Yes.
Anyway, good debate.
Yes.
Good chat.
Good chat.
Very interesting one.
Very well done.
Of course, well done. As per usual.
So,
Well,
should we do the honours?
I think so. I'll turn it off if you want to do some ASMR.
Happy birthday to you, Felix and George.